I am your host, Nicole Will, and we're so happy you're here as we navigate the world with your aging loved one. We are here to come alongside older adults, family members, and the senior living community as we explore the world of aging and elder care with helpful resources, informative interviews, and approachable conversation. We get to do this together, so join us on our journey, and this is the Will Gather podcast. Being drawn to the arts from a young age, having a mother that's an art teacher, and then attending art school, Cailey Massey had the vision to bring Artfull Enrichment to life and bring about a vision to provide creative programming to enrich the lives of older adults with high-quality, sustainable art programming. Through these innovative approaches, we can shift our perspective on what aging looks like. We can become confident and have a creative aging mindset. Through the shared art experiences, we can collaborate and connect the generations, learn a little bit more about ourselves. It's never too late to learn about ourselves. We can always evolve, and when we push ourselves outside of our comfort zone, that is where we can learn something new. Today, Cailey and I look at art from a bigger perspective. What is even creative aging? The benefits that art brings physically, for our mental health, why we should focus on that experience versus the product creation, why it's important for us to explore sides of ourselves that we haven't before, how families can participate in creative aging to build connection, what can we learn about ourselves when we let go of perfection, the motivation to participate in these wonderful art programs, and how do we elevate them so we respect our older adults and have age-appropriate interaction. Where can we pull inspiration from, and what is happening in the world of creative aging and the movement behind it? And if we feel like we haven't been creative before, where do we start? And bear with our sound. We had some connectivity issues, but our interview is there and it's full of rich information. Enjoy our conversation. Here is my interview with Cailey Massey, founder of Artfull Enrichment. Hi, Cailey. We meet again. I'm so happy we get a chance to catch up and hear about what you are up to. I know this is a really great conversation. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
There's so much that we bring of ourselves into the things that we do, and I want to hear, how did art find you? How did you find art? The whole story behind why you are doing what you're doing.
I think I was always really drawn to the arts ever since a young age. I remember painting on the walls of my bedroom as a kid, and my parents are pretty creative people. They're singers and in theater and that kind of thing. My mom's an art teacher herself, so I feel like it was always kind of baked into my childhood. And then I ended up going to art school after high school. And that's where I really started to get more serious about art and see which medium and which form of art I was really kind of connected with and best allowed me to express myself. And I fell in love with oil painting.
That medium too has so much texture. It's like speaks to you. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, there's something about oil paints that acrylic paints just can't quite do. I know I'm biased. It's definitely a lot more mess and cleanup, but the results are really lustrous and rich colors. And I like to work on pretty large scales, about like 8 foot by 10 feet, so I can get lots of movement in the paintings. And yeah, I still paint now today.
Okay, so that was your love, was oil painting. And then how did you take focusing on your own creation to then wanting to share that with others?
So after art school, I started teaching at different studios, and I was working with children and adults. And then eventually I kind of made my way over to working in retirement communities. And I worked really closely at one company and helped them build some of their creative programs. And that's where I fell in love with how these communities function and all the different missing, like all the different puzzle pieces to these communities, and understanding the barriers that older adults may face and how to overcome those in an art situation. And then after I worked for that company, I saw that art programs were not really accessible to older adult communities, I found, and the ones that were made available weren't adjustable to meet kind of different needs and abilities and interests. So that's how I started Artfull Enrichment, which was formerly Artful Aging. And I started creating a suite of programs that could be facilitated by recreation and life enrichment staff to their community. And I'm constantly working with the communities, the managers, like everybody essentially who's involved in running these communities, to make sure that the programs really reflect the residents and support the staff. And they're really easy to implement as well.
And it's so important. You talked about how you got to really see how the communities function and what goes on, because that's such a big part of it, is understanding how can you seamlessly integrate in what the life is happening at those communities and add that enrichment piece to it, and understanding all of those little, how the departments communicate with each other. Figuring out those ins and outs is, I think, half of the challenge of establishing in the communities to offer those programs. So having that insight is so helpful for you, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's been invaluable. I think having worked in long-term care, assisted living, retirement communities, and actually being in the spaces, understanding that some people do have designated art spaces, other people don't. So you have to have programs that can really adapt to those different scenarios. Some communities have a lot of staff to facilitate and support the program, whereas other communities, they're working with one staff who's spread really thin. So you want to make sure that you're really factoring all these different things into how these communities function, to make sure that it's as flawless or as seamless as possible.
When things are easy to implement, we're more likely to then want to do it and then share it with the people around us. Is this something too that families could use and implement in their home with their loved one as well?
So eventually we are going to be offering this to individuals where independently people could purchase a membership, access the programs, and kind of pursue them on their own at home or with a caregiver or a family member. At the moment, we only work with communities. So there are still ways to incorporate family members into those programs. So some of the companies that we work with, they'll have a night where they'll use one of our step-by-step programs, and they'll invite family or maybe like grandchildren of some of the residents, and they will collaborate alongside each other. And it's a really beautiful kind of shared art experience and a way for people to connect across different generations.
Having communities have families involved in
Mhm.
that atmosphere where people are welcome at all times and of all abilities, and creating that place to just incorporate that community together, I think is such a benefit, not only for the senior living space, but also the families, that they feel like they can really participate. And moving into that whole mindset of, if we're looking at art from that bigger perspective, there are so many benefits. There's a lot of adversity that we face as we grow older every day. And how does it help support us?
So I think when we're thinking about creative aging, it's quite a broad term. It's not just strictly talking about painting and drawing and music. It's talking about innovative approaches to aging, and really just kind of changing our perspective on what aging might look like, and in terms of senior living, thinking about how can we um, try kind of alter what types of programs that we offer to really promote creative aging. For example, Um, Obviously, from our side of things, it's more visual arts and looking and discussing art. Um, so I think a lot of those moments of creativity really allow people to learn about themselves and potentially learn new skills later in life, or uncover hidden passions or talents. And I think all of that can be encompassed in this whole creative aging movement that's happening in the senior living field.
I love how you use that term uncover. So true. Even I am still uncovering things that I find so much joy in and that creativity. And you think, is that possible? And it really is, no matter what age. It's just finding delight in those new things, and having programs like what you're doing gives us the ability to still uncover what that could be for us.
Exactly, because some people may have these hidden talents, and they never know until they try something new and kind of potentially push themselves out of their comfort zone. That's when you really learn about yourself, and it's never too late to learn something new about yourself. And I think that is a really important part of creative aging and the thought process behind promoting the creative aging mindset is just thinking that we're always evolving, always learning about ourselves, and the possibilities are endless.
Exciting that is, to know that we can still uncover things about ourselves. What are also some of those benefits? I know we can, probably think of what those few are, but I'd love for you to talk about that, and then maybe some that we might not even take into account of how it really supports us as we grow older.
So I think a lot of people think there are a lot of mental benefits, mental health benefits, but there's also a lot of physical benefits as well. And from that kind of point of view, painting and drawing can really help improve our fine motor skills, which it's one of those things, you use it or lose it, right? If you're not kind of exercising those little muscles in your hands, they may be more likely to atrophy. So from the physical side of things, there are some benefits, but also on the mental health side of things, shared art programs can really help foster meaningful relationships amongst people when they're creating alongside others, and help combat social isolation. So that's a really, really big one. A lot of people who attend art programs are there for the social aspect of it, not necessarily for the art side of it, which is great. You need kind of a little bit of everyone, and any reason to get down to that program is a great reason. Art has also shown to reduce stress in people. It can be a really powerful tool for people to express themselves and help process different emotions and feelings and thoughts. And again, it's a great way for someone to learn about themselves. So a multitude of benefits. And this is not just for older people, this is for people of all ages. But I think art has definitely shown, if people are participating consistently in art programs, they're much more likely to have improved mood and an improved overall quality of life.
I think too, there can be that pressure to produce this really beautiful product at the end, right? And most likely we put that on ourselves, but it's really not so much about that. Can you share with us more about that thought process of the experience of the creation versus what our final product really actually looks like?
I think this is the biggest barrier for people attending art programs. So a lot of the reasons why people don't want to go to an art program is because they feel they can't produce X, Y, Z, they're like, what, if I can't paint that, then I'm not going to go. Whereas I think we should really start to emphasize the experience of the process of making art over the final product, because everyone's finished piece is going to look completely different. Even if they are following the same steps, our brains work differently, our hands work differently, our lived experiences are all going to affect that piece that we make. And instead of fighting that, we should lean into it and kind of celebrate those differences and our unique perspective and our unique creations. And I think that's really important. And if we remind people of that, they're going to be much more likely to be open to trying something like painting or drawing.
Would it be the facilitator who would start by having that conversation in the beginning, is focusing on this is about our joy in creation and learning about ourselves? And I loved how you mentioned the lived experiences. That is so true. Like, we create based on the lens of our life and what we've been through and what we've gone through.
Yeah, it is definitely, we have some training videos, resources to support facilitators so that they can provide that kind of information and encouragement to the participants at the beginning to emphasize the experience over the final product. And whenever we are running our live workshops, we also always talk about kind of off-roading. So if people want to follow the instructions or the steps, they're more than welcome to. But if they want to go off-roading and kind of just do something completely different with the materials they have in front of them, it's always encouraged. And I think those kinds of people are usually the most creative because they're fearless, they're not afraid of kind of misstepping. So I think just reminding people that it's okay to go off-road is important.
And for people, okay, and I'll put myself in that category where we like things, right? I want to follow the steps. I think it's important to have that reminder, which I love that your facilitators do that. And the practice of the more we practice going off road, I think it
Mhm.
for us, it's good for us to express that freedom, in a different way. And there are so many thoughts to that I have about expressing ourselves and permission to do maybe something outside of our comfort zone. And there's why is that important for us to do that, to step outside of that comfort zone, to explore sides of ourselves that we haven't before?
I think it kind of goes back to the point of learning about ourselves. And like you said, it takes time, like you can't expect yourself to sit down and fully feel confident about what you're doing on the first go. Maybe you do, but if you don't, that's okay. You just need to kind of come back to those experiences, try them again, try something different and adapt and see what you like and kind of follow that path. But I do think it's like art making is like anything. The more you do it, the more comfortable and more natural it will come to you, whether that is following those steps or whether it is doing something original and innovative on your own terms.
When we let go of that perfection, right, and take that time to do some new things, what do we learn about ourselves in that process?
I think the biggest thing that you can learn from trying not to attain perfection, which is unattainable, especially when it comes to art, is there are infinite possibilities of how something can be done. And you really surprise yourself with what you're capable of creating when you don't strive for that perfection or don't strive to recreate something. I think a lot of people, when they do any art project, if they're kind of copying from a master or going through a step by step, often they want to go brushstroke for brushstroke, but that's not the purpose of the project. It's about really exploring your own creativity and again your own perspective.
I like that a lot. It's just sometimes we need permission. Unfortunately, right? We shouldn't need that. But it is so nice when people that are managing things can say, hey, just let it go, have fun, off-road a little bit, and be able to do that.
Just on that note too, I remember in university in one of my painting classes, when you're met with a large white blank canvas, it can be really intimidating for a lot of people because you feel like every brush stroke you put on that canvas has to be perfect and be in the right spot or else you're going to mess everything up. So I remember there was a professor who would come around and just put like a splatter of paint on your canvas. And part of you just gets so frustrated and you want to kind of start new again. But it also is really liberating because it removes that pressure of perfection, and it also just allows you to kind of let go and listen to those creative instincts and go with it when someone's made that first brushstroke for you. So maybe that's a little tip for people next time they're creating and feeling intimidated or that pressure of perfection.
I think that professor knew what they were doing. That they were like, we're just going to get you started here.
Exactly.
We talked a little bit about this, how families can be involved, but what are some other ways? I know that we're always looking for ways to connect with to connect with the people that we love. And how can we do that through art, but also maybe thinking outside the box a little bit?
I think, as we mentioned, inviting people to programs. I know some communities, they will have art exhibitions every year, and they will invite families to attend the art exhibitions. And it's a great way for people to showcase their art, share it with their family. And it can instill a lot of confidence and pride in the creator when they're being able to kind of show off their talents and their skills with their family members. We also, in terms of connecting with the greater community, we also encourage people to reach out to local people that you can collaborate with. So some communities will collaborate with libraries and showcase their art there, or they will connect with high schools and invite high school students to come get their volunteer hours and run our programs, which is a great way to offset some of the time from the recreation staff as well. And again, it has that intergenerational component. So I think we have a lot of resources and ideas on how people can connect beyond their individual community.
That importance of connection. I think we're all craving that so much more too. There's different motivations I think we all have. And one of them was just to be social with other people and to get out of our room and visit with the people, sitting next to us. What are some of those other motivations to participate? I think for people that maybe haven't thought of doing this before.
I think I always find that there's kind of three categories that people fall into when they attend a program. And you mentioned the social component, that's a big one for people. And it's usually the initial draw to any program. And then the second one is usually people are wanting to express themselves creatively. That's usually for the more creatively confident people, I would say. They're looking to just kind of explore with art materials and see what they're capable of. And then I would say the third one is skill development. So some people are more interested in learning the technical side of art making, improving upon their skills. And I find that really compelling reason to come to the program as well. It's that whole lifelong learning and development kind of side of the aging industry. I know that people talk a lot about that. We always like to incorporate how to learn different techniques within each program. And it allows people to have those building blocks, which ultimately is going to make them a more confident artist. Probably it means that they're more likely to pursue it independently on their own as well.
There's that whole idea too of people are moving away from that retirement and moving more into that reinvention. How am I reinventing myself and what am I exploring? Where am I finding purpose? And I think having those outlets that do that give us that hope of something to look forward to, is what I like to call it, right? We all need that. We all need like, oh, I get to do this at this time, and that's going to give me joy in my day.
Purpose is definitely, it's no matter your age, everyone needs that sense of purpose, and it gives meaning to your life. It gives, reason for you to wake up in the morning, and you can find that purpose in anything. And I think a lot of people, I find that communities who implement creative programs or any kind of program in a consistent way helps build routine. And then it also kind of supports that feeling of purpose. Because if somebody knows, okay, every Tuesday I'm going to be meeting up with my friends and we're going to be making art, and it kind of builds that momentum within the person and hopefully allows them to find purpose within it.
Yeah, I like that. The momentum we do, the more I feel like the more that we are able to do leads to other doing. And I find days when I don't have a lot going on, I tend to be much more, I don't know if lazy is the word, but the days when I've got structure and something happening, I'm like, okay, I'm pretty productive here. Like, I keep going.
It's so true. We talk about momentum a lot because I find, especially in the senior living world, there's a lot of stop and start with programming, and it takes time to implement a new program and kind of adjust it and adapt it to your community members. And as people do that, I think they should absolutely be consulting the residents continuously, and making sure that their feedback is heard and incorporated into how that program develops. But I think giving some program time and having that consistency will definitely lead to program growth and that momentum and excitement towards the program, ideally.
There is that thought behind it's not maybe those one big things that we do, it's those small consistent actions that we do over time that can have that great impact too. So I love that. I love giving that time, building the momentum, incorporating the residents' voice, which is what it's all about to be.
Mhm.
And also in respect to their voice, I think it's so important. I've witnessed programs where I thought I knew I was like, oh, this just feels like it's not age appropriate. So while we have to be mindful of adapting things so that there's a participation, it's also not, and the listeners can't see my hands. We don't want to have it be childish. I'm using that.
Mhm.
How do you suggest that we elevate programs and so that we don't miss the mark on that and for the sake of amazing lives that our older adults have lived?
I think about this all the time, developing new programs, because we're constantly getting feedback and programming ideas from our members, and we're always trying to incorporate them. But as we expand our program library, every program we create, we never want to underestimate the participant. So I think a big part of trying to ensure that we are creating programs for adults first and foremost is incorporating that learning and development side. So having technical skills kind of weaved in throughout the program. And we have a lot of art history programs and fun facts and things like that. So there is a lot of opportunities to learn and grow, which I think can help balance that out. It's tricky because a lot of the times at one art program, you may have a wide variety of experience levels and abilities, and maybe some different barriers that people are facing. So being able to adapt without compromising the quality of a program, we think about that with every single project that we do. So some of our projects have adjustments. So if someone's working with a memory care group, they can condense the project without really changing the foundation of it. And then there are always add-ons to a project as well. If somebody's looking to expand or just kind of take it a little bit further and push themselves maybe technically, then we have those modifications. So trying to just reach the broadest audience possible. And again, never underestimating people. I think really trying to avoid that childlike programming is key.
I can just see how you're so invested in the quality of your program, and that makes such a difference. So I appreciate that so much that you've taken the time to think about so many different things. So thank you for that. It's just an honor to have you here and to talk with us about all of it. Well, where do you pull inspiration from, or where should we pull inspiration from when we're creating or thinking about being creative? Or if I've said I'm so not creative, how do we dive into exploring that?
I think to people who don't identify as creative, I would first ask them what are their hobbies, what do they like to do, and then I'm sure within those hobbies there is elements of them being creative. For example, if they like to cook, there's a lot of creativity that can go into cooking. If someone's very intuitive about it, throwing spices together, and some people just have the knack for it. They just have that innate ability. I don't on the cooking side of things. But that is an outlet for creativity. It's not just about art making and art discussion or music or whatever it may be. It can be incorporated into your life in a lot of other ways: gardening, making clothing, arranging the furniture. So I think most people are creative, and if they are wanting to find inspiration from the art side of things, I would say maybe open up a magazine and kind of flip through it and pull out 5 images that catch your eye. And then when you take those 5 images, look at them and see maybe what similarities they may have. And you may start to find that there are certain things that you're actually drawn to and you don't even know it. And maybe you create an art piece based on that, or try copying an artist first off and kind of going from there. We're putting together a sketchbook series right now, so it's going to have lots of little prompts, like paint the first thing you can find. I'm holding up a mug here in front of you, and it may look like the wonkiest mug, but it's just about kind of trial and experimentation.
When you talk about what do we do that could be creative or that is creative, and we just don't even know that it is. I think I have a really good friend who put together the most incredible outfits that I never would put things together, but it looks amazing. And I'm like, when you were talking, I had that thought. I'm like, she's super creative and how she puts her outfits together with like the jewelry and the shoes. And I think we need to give ourselves credit for the ways that we actually really are, and just acknowledge that.
Yeah, I think changing our understanding of what creativity is and really broadening that definition, because creativity is innovative thinking. It's taking an idea and translating it into something tangible or experiential. It has nothing to do with being artistically skilled in something. So if we open ourselves up to what creativity is, then maybe we're more likely to identify as a creative.
True. And there's a lot happening in your world right now with Artful Enrichment. I'm excited to hear more about that, but also in the world of creative aging and the movement. Kind of give us like an overview of what's happening. What does it look like? I'm assuming there's momentum because we are hearing this term more.
So what I've seen in the past couple years is people particularly in the senior living industry, companies are starting to see the value of the arts in communities. And for a long time, a lot of communities were not always putting funding into those types of programs because they maybe didn't see the benefits, but there's more studies coming out showing that there are incredible benefits, and they're also enjoyable. So I think companies are starting to put the budgets more into it, open them up a little bit, and make the arts more accessible to their residents. So that's the biggest thing that I have seen, is a change in attitude towards the value of creativity.
And I would say also families and older adults are also demanding that there is creatively express ourselves. And they want that variety and that innovation that you had talked about. And so I think communities are held to a higher standard of what are we offering? How are we supporting the people that live here? How are we incorporating their passions and making it accessible? And so it's like this perfect combination of the desire and the demand from the consumer, and then also the operators saying, yeah, we really actually do and want to have this be available also.
Yeah, and I think after the last few years, when people were isolated across all ages, a lot of people turned to the arts as a way to kind of process what they were going through. Really, if you want to kind of experiment or explore your creative side, all you need is a pen and a paper, and you can just start doodling, and you'll be surprised at how much that can kind of reduce anxieties and just allow you to kind of process different emotions and feelings. So I think that experience for a lot of people allowed people to see the benefit of it as well.
Your big heart is like so evident, and I love, people can't see you, but you've got like the best smile and demeanor, and I know that anyone that what you're doing will be just so thrilled to be a part of it. Where can we learn more? Where can we direct people to find out more about you?
People can go to our website, artfullenrichment.com. And Artful is with two L's, which is always a little confusing, but they can go there. We are also on Instagram at Artful Enrichment, and LinkedIn, Facebook, or they can always connect with me as well, which I'm sure you'll pop into the description. So yeah, I'm hoping to connect with anybody who's open to it if they have any questions.
Absolutely. And we'll include that in our episode description as well. They can scroll and click on the link and be able to find out all about it. And I love the two L's. There's something about the play on words behind it that it's so full of all of the things.
Exactly. That's the thought process behind it, the fullness of creativity.
Thank you, Cailey. It's been a joy to spend the morning with you. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you so much. This has been such a nice conversation.
Thank you for listening today. If you enjoyed our episode, please subscribe and give us 5 stars. In all honesty, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening to our episode.